I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. Tonight was my second to last council meeting ever. Next meeting at the end of May will be my last, as it will be for Casey Prince, Rick Smith, and potentially Anthony Riccadelli. We will all be rolling off of council after this election, this local election. And I'm gratified that we accomplished something tonight, at tonight's meeting, that I've been advocating for a while. So that has to do with the allocation of the money we get from HUD, but I'll come back to that. First, in the preliminary open meeting, we covered new guidelines for recording equipment. Before we renovated the council chambers, news crews would set up their cameras above the lip of where the seating is in the council chambers. But now we have glass partitions there, and it's not as easy to set up a camera behind that. And so we reviewed guidelines for where people could set up recording equipment. That's not for people holding their phones recording. Anybody can do that. This is guidelines for people who have to set up equipment like a tripod to work with. So we covered that. And we also honored the 2025 graduates of the Plano Citizens Government Academy. And a particular shout out to my friend Jim Sherrard, who graduated from that and now has a trifecta from the Plano Citizens Government Academy, Plano Police Academy, and Plano Fire Academy. So well done, Jim. I have only graduated from the Plano Citizens Government Academy many years ago, but now I'll be graduating from City Council too. Not that it's a competition. But we also recognized April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And we had several folks there to recognize that, and with the CPS board as well. So we had two particular items for individual consideration tonight. The first was modified open space requirements and signage requirements for Legacy West. The bulk of the meeting focused on shutting down Water Drive. That's one of the westernmost access points to Legacy West. And a lot of folks there had come under or had weighed in saying they were opposed to this change. They wanted to shut down Water Drive and basically turn it into programmable open space with a platform for live acoustic music and seating areas and a particular sculpture which looks, the design looks really cool. But the people who weighed in saying they were opposed to this were citing the traffic concerns. This is one of the three entry points to Legacy West from the west side without coming straight up communications and down the main drag. I was advocating for a pilot for this, and I was prepared to vote no if necessary, but what ultimately swayed me in the opposite direction was Anthony Riccadelli's point, which was that this was a property rights issue, and that road, Water Road, is not actually owned by the city. That is owned by the development, the Legacy West owner. And that convinced me, and so that passed unanimously in the end. Now, the big meaty portion of the discussion had to do with what we do with our HUD funding. Now, HUD funding is broken into two different types of grants. There's CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, and then there's home funds. Both of them come with guidelines and restrictions on how they're used. Again, this is federal money, which means your money. It's just taken through the federal pocket rather than the state or the local pocket. And then it is given back to the city to use for specific purposes under the rubric of the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. And this is used for a variety of things traditionally. CDBG and home funds, they have different sets of requirements, but amongst both of them, they can be used for housing rehabilitation. A couple of examples we looked at tonight were for like an 86-year-old man who is caring for a 65-year-old, essentially adult child, and there were numerous problems with the property. It was an older home in East Plano, leaky roof, etc. So those funds can be used to rehabilitate that property for qualified people. It's also used for rapid rehousing, tenant-based housing assistance, helping people who, and homelessness prevention is a big one that I've been advocating for years, as has former council member Rick Grady. And a couple of uses to which they have also been put historically are acquisition, refurbishment, remodeling, rehabilitation, reselling of homes, as well as new home builds. Now, part of this is done under the home funds rubric. 15% of home funds have to be set aside for use with the CHODO. That's a community development housing organization. But CHODOs, like Habitat for Humanity is the one we're working with right now, they can build homes for sale. And oddly, we were talking about two particular homes that were built in East Plano, and they're not even quite available for sale yet. But part of the requirement is that they be sold at appraised value, which means market value. And what didn't strike us as proper, or what was discordant, was that these are ostensibly meant for people at lower incomes, right? So why are they required to be sold at market value in a place where the average market value for a home is pretty high in Plano? And it goes hand in hand with the first-time home buyer program. That's another thing we've used the money for traditionally. And that has also not sat well with me. It's unquestionably a fantastic benefit for the person receiving it, but it's a lot of money, on average $45,000 up to $55,000 as a grant to a first-time home buyer that meets the qualification requirements. But a couple things happen under that dynamic. First, a family or a first-time home buyer who doesn't quite meet the requirements to receive that grant, they're stuck out. They may be just on the edge of being able to receive that, but maybe they make $5,000 a year too much, maybe $1,000 a year too much, maybe $1 a year too much, and so they don't qualify. And then that home goes to the person who is a first-time home buyer who does meet the qualifications and gets that $45,000 windfall. Again, unquestionably a benefit for the person receiving it, and it's a great benefit for that person, but that's $45,000 that we could use toward other purposes to benefit more people, such as with critical housing rehabilitation, foundation repair, sewage, sewer pipe repair, leaky roof repair, things like that, like we actually discussed at the meeting tonight. The second thing, well, that is the second thing. I mean, $45,000, not only does it edge people out of the market with a limited housing supply, but that's money that could go to broader benefit with less expensive investment for people who have just as much a need. And homelessness prevention is something I'm a big believer in, under the idea that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's a lot less investment to prevent somebody from becoming homeless than it is to rehabilitate and rehouse somebody who is already homeless. And if we're going to be receiving these monies from the federal government anyway, then I think that's where we really need to be investing our efforts and our energies. So what we accomplished tonight, we were considering the 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan. That's basically a plan that's required by HUD, saying, you know, what's your goals? How are you going to use this money? How are you going to allocate it? And we're required to have a consolidated plan and an action plan that's coming later this year in order to qualify to receive the HUD funds. But we managed to say that for the 2024-2025 consolidated plan, we are not going to require or we're not going to allocate any of that toward the first-time homebuyer program, nor are we going to allocate it to acquisition, resale, or new home builds outside of that 15% required carve-out for CHODOs for HUD funds. And I see this as a tremendous win and something that I am very proud to go out on. That was tonight's meeting, though it took a while. I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council, and I will be coming at you with one more recap on council. Thank you and God bless.